My fiancée swore her male best friend was like a brother. At a party, she sat on his lap and joked, "See, more comfortable than sitting with my fiancé." Everyone laughed. I just smiled. That night, she found out where comfortable really ends. Let's be clear about something from the start. I'm no one's fool. I'm a structural engineer. My entire life, my entire career, is built on understanding stress points, load-bearing walls, and foundational integrity. I see the cracks before they become catastrophic failures. For the last 6 months, I've been watching the cracks spread through my relationship with my fiancée Jessica, and I've been quietly drafting the demolition plans. Her name is Jessica, she's 28, and the biggest crack, the one that threatened the entire structure, was her male best friend, Liam. When we first got together 2 years ago, I accepted the story she sold me. "He's like a brother to me," she'd say. A phrase that should be taught in schools as the universal warning sign for "I'm keeping my options open." I'm 34, I've been around long enough to know better, but I wanted to believe her. For the first year and a half, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. But about 6 months ago, after we got engaged, something shifted. The brotherly behavior escalated. It was the constant late-night texts that she'd shield from my view. It was him being her +1 to a work event because I had a deadline. It was his opinion on our wedding venue, holding more weight than mine. It was the way he'd casually drape his arm over the back of her chair at dinner, his fingers brushing her shoulder, a subtle act of ownership that he knew I could never call out without looking like a jealous, controlling maniac. So I didn't call it out. I observed, I documented. The engineer in me took over. I started quietly untangling my life from hers. Not emotionally at first, but financially and legally. I made sure the lease on our apartment, which was up for renewal, remained solely in my name. I opened a new personal bank account and started diverting the majority of my savings there, leaving just enough in our joint account to maintain the illusion of a shared future. I wasn't being paranoid. I was preparing for a controlled collapse. I knew it was coming. I just needed one final, public, undeniable data point to justify pulling the trigger. Last Saturday night, she handed it to me on a silver platter. We were at a housewarming party for our friends. It was a perfect evening, a big crowd, lots of people we both knew. I was talking with a group of guys when I saw Liam take a seat in a big armchair across the patio. A moment later, Jessica walked over. Instead of finding another seat, she turned and sat directly on his lap, settling back against his chest like it was her personal throne. He, in turn, wrapped his arms around her waist, his hands resting on her hips, with a familiarity that made my stomach turn. The chatter around me died down. I could feel the eyes of everyone at the party shifting towards me, watching for my reaction. Mark, the host and a good friend of mine, looked at me with an expression of pure horror. Jessica saw me watching. She had the audacity to smile, a wide, challenging smile, and call out so everyone could hear, "See, Daniel? More comfortable than sitting with my fiancé." A few people let out shocked, awkward laughs. Liam just smirked at me from under her, a smug look that said, "I won." And in that moment, there was no hurt, there was no rage, there was only a cold, quiet click in my head. The final data point had been acquired. The structural failure was confirmed. It was time to execute the plan. I smiled back at her, a completely empty, placid smile. I raised my drink in a little salute. "Whatever makes you comfortable," I said, my voice perfectly level. Then I turned back to my conversation, as if I hadn't just witnessed the public execution of my engagement. Inside, the demolition sequence had already begun. For the rest of the night, I was a ghost. I made small talk, I laughed at jokes, I refilled my drink. But my mind was 1,000 miles away, running through a checklist. On the drive home, she was giddy, buzzing from the attention. She talked about the party, about how much fun she had, completely oblivious to the fact that she was sitting next to a man who had already deleted her from his future. We got home just after 1 in the morning. She yawned, said she was exhausted, and went straight to the bedroom. "Don't stay up too late working," she said, blowing me a kiss. "I won't," I replied. I waited until I heard the definitive click of the bedroom door. Then I went to my office and began the demolition. I wasn't working. I was ending us. Update 1. The hours between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. on Sunday morning were the most productive I've had in years. There was no emotion, only process. It was a sequence of tasks to be executed with precision. First, I secured the perimeter. I logged into the online portal for our apartment building and permanently deactivated her key fob. Then I changed the access code on the smart lock on our front door. The physical structure was now mine alone. Next, I severed the financial lifelines. I logged into our joint bank account. I transferred the remaining balance of my contributions, which was about 98% of the total, into my personal account. I left her exact contribution, down to the cent, in the account. Then I accessed my primary credit card, the one on which she was a very active authorized user. I went through the charges from the past month: brunch with her friends, a new designer handbag, a spa day with Liam's sister. I paid the balance in full. Then I clicked the button, remove user and report card as stolen. Her primary source of funding was gone. Finally, I dealt with her immediate possessions. I knew if I just threw her out, she could claim I had stolen her valuable items. I had to be smarter. I went into the bedroom where she was sleeping, a faint smile on her face, probably dreaming of whatever comfort Liam provided. I moved with the silence of a cat. I gathered her essentials: her laptop, her work phone, her primary purse which contained her wallet and keys, her phone charger, and a small jewelry box containing the pieces I had bought for her. I packed them all into her favorite weekend bag. I placed the bag by the front door, ready for her departure. The rest of her life, the mountains of clothes and shoes and accumulated junk, could be dealt with later. This was about a clean, swift extraction. At 5 a.m., I sent a single text message to our mutual friend Mark, the host of the party. "Hey man, sorry for the weirdness last night. Just wanted to let you know that Jessica and I are done." I ended it. "If you hear any crazy stories, just know the truth is she made her choice in front of about 50 people." I knew Mark was a decent guy. He would spread the correct version of events, inoculating me against the inevitable smear campaign. Then I put my phone on airplane mode and went for a run as the sun came up. When I got back, the apartment was quiet. I made coffee and waited. Around 10, Jessica finally emerged, looking groggy. "Morning," she said, avoiding my eyes. Maybe some small part of her realized she had gone too far. "My phone is dead. Can you grab my charger from my purse?" "I can't," I said calmly. "Your purse is by the front door, in a bag with your other essentials." She frowned, confused. "What are you talking about? Why would it be there?" "Because that's where you're going," I said, my voice flat and devoid of emotion. "You don't live here anymore." She actually laughed, a short, disbelieving bark. "Okay, I get it. You're mad about last night. I already told you, it was a joke. You're being a little dramatic, don't you think?" "No," I said, standing up to face her. "I'm being logical. You sat on another man's lap in front of all our friends and declared you were more comfortable with him than with me. That is not a joke. That is a public statement of your priorities. I accept your statement. My priority, in turn, is to not be in a relationship with someone who holds me in such public contempt." The color drained from her face as she realized I was serious. "You're breaking up with me? Like this, after 2 years?" "The relationship was over last night," I corrected her. "This is just the logistical follow-up. Your key fob won't work, and the code to the door has been changed. Your credit card has been canceled. The money in our joint account has been separated. Your essential belongings are in the bag by the door. I suggest you call the person you are most comfortable with to come and get you. You have until noon." The tears and the pleading started then, a predictable and pathetic performance. She was sorry. She loved me. It was a mistake. She wasn't thinking. I just stood there unmoved. The engineer in me had already calculated the stress tolerances of our relationship and she had exceeded them. The structure was condemned. Liam arrived about an hour later, playing the role of the outraged, protective brother. He stormed into my apartment, which Jessica let him into, and tried to get in my face. "You're a real piece of work, you know that?" he said, trying to sound intimidating. I didn't even look at him. I just looked at Jessica. The clock is ticking. At noon, he is officially trespassing. Then I looked at Liam. "And just so you know, the security cameras in this hallway record audio. Any threats you make will be handed over to the police." His tough guy act crumbled instantly. He was a coward, like all bullies. He muttered something under his breath, grabbed her bag, and they left. As she walked out the door, Jessica turned back. "What about the rest of my things?" she cried. "You can contact me via email to arrange a time for a supervised pickup," I said. "You will be allowed 1 hour, with a police escort present to ensure a civil transfer of property. Goodbye, Jessica." Then I closed the door, engaged the smart lock, and the silence I had been craving for 6 months finally filled my home. Update 2. The days following the eviction were a masterclass in damage control and narrative warfare, all orchestrated by Jessica and her circle. I was prepared for it. A structure doesn't just collapse. There's always a cloud of dust and debris. The first wave was the emotional appeal, led by her mother. The voicemails were textbook. First came the feigned concern, then the tearful pleading, and finally, the veiled threats. I saved them all but responded to none. The second wave was the social media assault. It was a coordinated campaign of vague but pointed posts. Her friends posted about the hidden pain of emotional abuse and men who punish women for having male friends. Liam, in a stroke of breathtaking hypocrisy, posted a picture of him and Jessica with the caption, "Some bonds are unbreakable. Always here for my sister." It was a performance designed to paint me as a possessive, unstable monster. They thought they controlled the narrative. They thought wrong. My response wasn't to argue or post my own side of the story. It was to deploy a single, devastating piece of evidence that would render their entire campaign irrelevant. I had known for months that their relationship was more than brotherly. The proof was sitting on a backup of Jessica's phone that I had on my home server. She was always paranoid about losing her data, so she'd asked me to create a full backup a few months ago. At the time, I did it as a favor. Now it was my arsenal. I spent an evening going through the data. It was worse than I could have imagined. Text messages between her and Liam, filled with inside jokes at my expense. They called me the blueprint because I was designing the life she wanted to eventually live with him. And then I found the video. It was from a weekend trip she and Liam had taken a few months back, a trip she told me was a childhood friends reunion. The video was short, a selfie she had recorded in their hotel room. Liam was in the background, shirtless. "So, the blueprint is almost done with the wedding plans," she says to the camera, a smirk on her face. "He's so predictable, it's almost cute. He thinks he's building a future for us." She pans the camera to Liam. "He has no idea he's just the architect. You're the one who's going to live in the house." They both laugh and she blows a kiss to the camera. This wasn't just disrespect. This was a long con. A premeditated plan to use me for my stability and income, only to discard me once the project was complete. I edited the video down to the most damning 30 seconds. I created an anonymous file sharing link, and I sent that link in 2 separate, anonymous emails. The first was to the Human Resources Department of the company where Jessica worked as a project manager. The subject line was, "Concerning the integrity of a project manager." The email was short and professional. "To whom it may concern, I believe this video, which was recorded by your employee Jessica, raises serious questions about her character, judgment, and ethical conduct. I thought it was information you should have." The second email was to Liam's fiancé. Yes, fiancé. I had done my research. He was engaged to a woman from a wealthy family, a union that was very important for his career in his family's investment firm. Her name was Emily. The subject line was, "Something you need to know about Liam." The email was even shorter. "Emily, I am so sorry to be the one to show you this. You deserve the truth." I hit send on both emails. I had planted the charges deep inside the foundations of their lives. I didn't have to wait long for the detonation. Final update. It has been 4 months. The dust has settled, and the landscape of my life and theirs has been permanently altered. The revenge wasn't loud or explosive in the moment, but its effects were catastrophic and irreversible, just like a well-planned demolition. Mark, my friend, kept me updated on the fallout. The video did exactly what I designed it to do. At Jessica's work, an internal investigation was launched. Her job involved managing large, sensitive client projects. A video of her openly admitting to a long-term plan to defraud her fiancé was seen as a massive liability. She wasn't fired, but she was moved to a low-level, internal-facing role with no client contact and no path for advancement. Her career was effectively over. For Liam, the consequences were even more severe. His fiancée, Emily, did not take the news quietly. She not only broke off the engagement, but she also sent the video to her father, who happened to be one of the biggest clients at Liam's family's investment firm. The next day, her father pulled his entire 8-figure portfolio from the firm. Liam became a pariah overnight. He lost his fiancée, his reputation, and cost his family's business millions. Last Mark heard, Liam had been quietly reassigned to a satellite office in another state, a form of professional exile. With her career in shambles and her brother now a disgraced outcast, Jessica's world collapsed. Her friends, the ones who had been so quick to attack me, vanished. They were attracted to her perceived status and the comfortable life she led with me. When that was gone, so were they. She was forced to get a lawyer to arrange the pickup of her belongings from the storage unit. My lawyer handled the entire interaction. Her lawyer tried to make a claim for financial support, citing relationship-induced financial dependency. My lawyer responded with a single sentence: "We are in possession of video evidence of your client confessing to a conspiracy to commit fraud, and we will happily introduce it in court should you wish to proceed." The claim was dropped the same day. I sold the apartment. I couldn't stand to be in a place built on such a rotten foundation. I used the money to buy a piece of land a little ways out of the city. I've spent the last few months designing my own house from the ground up. It's a project that is entirely mine, built on a foundation of honesty and self-respect. The most satisfying part of this whole ordeal wasn't seeing them fall. It was the realization that I had trusted my own judgment. I saw the cracks, I analyzed the data, and I acted decisively. I didn't let emotion cloud my thinking. I protected myself and my future from people who saw me not as a partner, but as a resource to be exploited. They thought I was just the blueprint, a boring, predictable plan they could use and discard. They were right about one thing: I am a planner, and my final blueprint was a design for their complete and utter self-destruction, executed with their own materials.